In this video, I'm going to give you a taste of all of the form components that Quasar has to offer. We're going to do minimal examples for every single one of them just so you see what they look like, and then you can jump ahead to different videos that are coming up just to choose the ones that are more relevant to you. Otherwise, watch them from start to finish and you'll have a really good idea of how you can collect data from users using Quasar. So let's go ahead and get started. Quasar, new page, components / Q, form, let's call it components page. How about that? Jump into that, open it up in the menu, and we're ready to get started. Now, first I want to cover all of the data that we're going to be modeling. So let's return some data here. We'll have some text, and I'll start off with my name to begin with there. So we'll model some text. A list, we'll make that an empty array to begin with. How about selected options? So if there's a bunch of options that you can select from, and we'll make that null to begin with. Is human, I'm going to make this a boolean, so if we want to change different booleans. Distance, if we want to do stuff related to numbers, and we'll set that to 10 by default. We even have range available to us, so we can get a minimum, for example, 10, and a maximum, and that could be something like 20. There's even components for range. We've also got file, just in case we want to pull in a file like an image from the user. Time, that one's pretty self-explanatory, and date. And that should do, at least for now. And let's come down here, and we'll also add my favorite method, which is the logger method. Logger, and that's going to take in some params. And then we'll just console.log all of those params. Just a good way to see it, to see where we're at. We might not use it, but it's nice to know that it's there for us. Now, another thing I want to do is I'm going to be using just H2s. And so I want to change the styling of that because by default, the margining is kind of weird for them. We'll use normal CSS just so everybody can understand. And I'll say H2, and then we'll say margin bottom, and we'll set that to 12 pixels. And I'll also set a margin top equal to something really large, just so they're very separated and we have a lot of room to work with. All right. Next, I always want to be able to see the data that we're working with in this video. So let's say q-page-sticky, and I'm basically going to stick like a card on the side here so that we can always have a live update of what our data looks like. Let's say q-card and q-card-section, and then we'll put a pre-tag in there which is going to hold all of our data. Let's just see what that looks like. Okay, so that throws a card down the bottom. What I might do here is set the position equal to right, and I think that will set it in the center. Yeah, there we go. Now we can set, how about a width equal to 50%. And the reason I'm doing that is just so it pushes a little bit further this way so it's closer to our data and easier to look at. And we'll also have a button that logs that result because that might come in handy as well. So how about this? Q-card-actions, a Q-button in there, and at click, we'll use that logger to log out our data. And we will call this the logger. Save that. And there we go. If I open up the console, there's all of our data. And if we click on this, we also get our data in the console. So sometimes we might need that if we have nested objects, for example, that won't show up in there. Okay, cool. We are almost ready to get started. Just a couple more things. Let's have a div up here. And this will take up the other 50%. So width 50% of the space. And then inside here is where we're going to have everything. So let's have a H2. Q input is the first one that we're going to look at. Nice, we're set and ready to go. So Q-input, V-model, and we're going to model the text. So we have an input, and this is very basic text modeling. And if I change this to like Panda, which is the name of my dog, then it shows up there. So that's the easiest way to model text. Moving on, we've also got the Q-select component. So Q-select, and that's also going to need some options as well, which will of course be an array. And my dog's name is Panda and Lily. They're my two chihuahuas. And we also used to have a dog called Moe. And there we go. Now we can select from those options. And we'll also have to model something here. Let's change it from text to list. And now see, if we look at list here, that's going to update. Oh, that shouldn't really be an array by default. So what I meant is we're updating a value within a list. Let's set that to null. Cool. So now we can select those options from a list. What else can we do? Well, we also have the Q button toggle, which is a great way to select things within a list as well. Button dash toggle. And that's going to be all of the options available to us. In fact, we don't have to change anything in here. It's the exact same. Might have to refresh the page to get that going. Oh, and this actually has to be an array of objects because it needs a little bit more information for each of those items in the list. It needs to have a label. So the label will be equal to panda, and the value will be equal to panda. And let's just copy paste that down for the other ones. Lily and Moe, because sometimes in this case the label will be different to the value. Let's refresh the page, and there we go. Panda, Lily, and Moe. And notice that it's updating the Q select as well, which is kind of cool. Nice. What else can we do? Well, we can achieve a similar result using Q-radio. And by the way, all the components I'm showing you here have so much more depth than what I'm showing in this video. I just want you to know what's available. So we can model a list there, and then we also have to set a value there, which will be equal to Lily. So if we select this one, then list will be equal to Lily, and let's do panda and Moe as well. And there we go. And I forgot to close these off, so let's make sure they're closed off. Cool. Bit of crazy stuff going on there. And I also forgot to give it a heading. So that is a Q radio button. Q radio. Nice. So if we select this, it changes. That's really cool. What else can we do? We have Q checkbox. And in this example, we're just going to model a Boolean. So let's say Q-checkbox and V-model. What will we model? I believe it was called selected option. There it is there. I can just copy paste it straight in. Nice. And if we come down here, we have a checkbox now. So we can set that to true and false. What else do we have? We've also got the Q toggle, which is very similar to a checkbox, but it looks a bit different. So let's have a look at that, and we can toggle that on and off. Moving on. We've also got the slider. So this one's really cool. Check this out. Q-slider. And in this example, we will model, I think it was the distance. Yeah, there it is. Distance. So if I come down here, we can have a look at that one. Oh, and it's meant to have the letter R in there. Refresh the page again. And there we go. We've got the slider, which will change the value there. And I'm just going to quickly show you, we can also put the word label in here, which means that we'll get a label that shows as we slide it, which is kind of cool. Sometimes we won't want one number, but we actually want a range. And in order to do that, we can use the Q range. Q range, and change this to range. And we will model the range, and we'll keep the label option there. And now we can change the range using these two sliders. Really, really cool. What else can we do? We also have the Q file. So I'll get rid of the label in this example, and we'll model the file. Here we go. This is where we might use the logger. So let me just change that to file. Refresh the page. Yeah, because if I choose a file in here now, let's choose the koala. Notice that it isn't actually reflected there. We're going to have to console.log in order to see that result. So I'm going to click on our trusty logger. And if we come down to file there, we can see that it has indeed modeled the file. So that's pretty cool. And the last two are the Q time and the Q date. So Q time, this looks really awesome. You're going to love it. Check it out. So we put time in there, scroll to the bottom of the page. You can set the time, and we can set it from AM and PM. And then we've also got date. which is also a really pretty component. Q date, modeling the date. Oh, change the word date there as well. And there we go. I might just have to refresh the page. Yeah, here we go. And we can select a date. And it all gets modeled exactly as it should on the right here. Now, we actually have a whole lot of power over how all of this is modeled, which I'll show you in future videos. But the last thing I want to show you is how we might use all of this in a form. So there's one attribute that all of these components, these input components, have in common. And it's required in order for us to submit forms, and that is the name field. I'll show you how that works in a second. So let's grab all of this, so everything inside of this div here, and I'm going to wrap that inside a Q-form. Actually, let me just tell you what I did. Control-Shift-Enter allows me to wrap this inside of a tag. So Q-form, we're going to wrap all of that in a Q-form. And then I can say here, the action is equal to /sum-URL. So this is the place that you would be sending it to. And let's set it to post as the method here. And now let's come down the bottom because we actually need a button to submit this with as well. Let's say Q-button, and I might give that a heading of submit. How about submit button? And in order for this button to submit the form, we have to give it a type equal to submit. And let's give it a label as well to submit. Save that. And there we go. We've got a submit button at the bottom there. However, if I open up the console and I go to the network tab and we submit this form, let's have a look at the request. I might actually make this a little bit bigger. Hide that. And if we come down here, we aren't actually submitting any data. And the reason is we don't have those name fields that I was talking about. So let's go back to that page there, and we'll give all of these a name field. I'll do this as fast as I can. So name here is equal to input. I'm going to copy that. This one is select. This one is button toggle. That'll do. This one is going to be radio 1, and then we'll also have radio 2 and radio 3. Radio 3. So if this one is selected, for example, it means that the attribute of radio 1 will be sent through, otherwise radio 2, etc., etc. But anyway, I don't want to go too much into that. It goes beyond the scope of this. Also, we have checkbox. Also, we have toggle. We've got this beautiful slider here. We have this awesome range input. The file component. Woo, almost there. Time and date. Time, date. Save that, and hopefully this will all work now. So if I refresh the page, and then I come down the bottom here, and I might just make sure that a lot of this is filled in. So it all shows up. Give that an image of a koala. Set the time, set the date, and then press submit. Now, obviously, that URL doesn't exist, so it didn't work. However, if we look at the headers, you'll notice that all of that data has been sent through. So something to know, if you're going to submit things natively, you have to make sure that it's got a name. And every single one of these form-related fields are going to have the name attribute that you can set. So there we go. In the next videos, we're going to cover all of these. There is so much depth, and it is so exciting, the amount of styling, the amount of control we have over the underlying data. You are going to absolutely love the next few videos. I can't wait to share it with you, and I'll see you then.